good day to you, my friend. Welcome back to the Higher Grounds podcast. We do thank you for joining us today. We're looking forward to having a good day with you around the podcast table, and appreciate our friends joining us back again today. Brother Zack Garner, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
And as always, Brother Michael Poindexter, appreciate you, Brother Mike,
Amen.
with us.
Glad to be here.
I thank the Lord for the opportunity that we have through the podcast to minister to folks around the country, even around the world, and try to be a help and a benefit. We're not trying to, make a splash or make a name.
Mm-hmm.
We're just trying to give material that's going to be helpful to you as an individual.
Amen.
We do that, of course, through all of the materials that we post daily and the Morning Minute Meditations, but also with our episode every week. One of the things that we're trying to do is give you something that will help your local church, help your pastor, and help you as an individual. And we hope that the Lord will allow us to do that for you, particularly and specifically. Well, we were last week dealing with this subject of Hope Addictions Ministry. And we were talking about how that the Lighthouse Baptist Church in Seagrove, North Carolina, with Brother Zack Garner, who is a member of that church, working and administrating and overseeing the Hope Addictions program, is pushing this thing forward in their community. And you're not a large community, but yet even though you're not a large community, you're seeing a lot of foot traffic in regard to helping, because this problem is astronomical.
Yes.
And what we're facing in America, not just from from a law enforcement perspective, but just socially and culturally, we're in a mess nationwide. And I know that our states, North and South Carolina, have seen great increases in problems with opioid addiction and even overdoses and suicides. And so we want to begin to talk about some of that today about, I'm glad you're doing what you're doing, Brother Zack, but really tell me, how big a problem is all of this? Is this really a big problem? So that's kind of what we want to touch on today and give folks an idea of some things that we're dealing with in our communities and kind of take it from there.
Yeah, I think even before touching on the problem itself, you have to look at how we got here.
Right.
So you look at modern methodologies and modern treatments and the way this thing is happening. This false evolutionary construct that has been adopted by American society, it's only been here for about 170 years, and you got guys like Sigmund Freud and Carl Rogers and Carl Jung. They've made these statements that they're doing the work of a pastor, and yet it's completely opposite of what the Bible says.
Right.
And
doing the work of the pastor by...
Yeah, and so there's basically two main methods that we're looking at. Method number one is blaming everybody else and curtailing responsibility. I think Freud, that would be closely aligned with him. He called himself a godless Jew and a hopeless pagan. That's his words.
Right.
And so whenever we send people to modern counseling, and there's some good godly people that may work in those fields, and so I'm not trashing the whole field. I'm just saying at the end of the day, what is their final message? And so we're dealing with 170 years of practice in medicine, and it's almost like the church has punted its responsibility in dealing with mental health in some cases, in drug addiction, which
no doubt,
is kind of a newer problem. But even down to pagan religions of ancient days, they still partook in that. And we have this problem on our hands. And obviously, there was a quote that a secular man made. I had this wrote down. He put, "Has evangelical religion sold its birthright for a mess of psychological pottage?" So he basically seen what the church was doing was a good thing, and whenever in the early the early 1900s moving into modern methodology, seen the church start adopting modern methods that just didn't quite work. And
right.
Here we are, the numbers are through the roof, and ever since 2013, the opioid issues have spiked, and I mean, obviously, habitual sin and addiction is just through the roof. And we only look at the big deals like the deaths, right?
Right.
In our particular county, at Randolph, where Lighthouse Baptist Church is, we had, I think it was 73 to 81 deaths. The state and the county kind of debate over those numbers. And so, I mean, that's up from like 54 from the previous year, and 22 is going to be even higher,
right?
Unless something changes. And so, as a community, as a church, we need to be reaching out and doing some outreach.
Now, you live in Moore County.
I live in Moore County. We've been traveling. We go about 25 miles north.
And the problem is the same in your county.
Same, absolutely.
And growing by yearly.
Yeah, leaps and bounds. If you look at any of the curves and the metrics on this, ever since 2013, you see a major spike. 2017, the state of North Carolina, which is what I'll probably be talking about more than South Carolina, the state of North Carolina instituted, North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services instituted like an opioid dashboard. You can go online and see the numbers for your county because it's just such a big problem. They're trying to equip counties, municipalities, religious organizations with the tools they need to be able to address this problem. The world does not have the answer, and it's pretty set in stone that that's the case. What's considered the gold standard of treatment is they call it MATS, medicinal assisted treatment. My father's a pharmacist, been for over 40 years, and he said he has not seen MATS work on one single person that he knew. So that gives you some indication of what we're dealing with.
Well, basically, in a nutshell, when you're talking about MATS and medical assisted treatment, you're basically talking about exchanging one drug for another drug to try to get you over drugs. Yeah. And if you go into any community, it doesn't matter if it's an urban community or a rural community, you will see signs along the road pointing you to Suboxone clinics, to where folks are going and trying to, to medicate themselves by way of more drugs, off of drugs, to help them conquer a self-discipline problem, when it's really not even a self-discipline problem. It's a sin issue.
Sure.
And it becomes a physiological issue and affects a person's mind as far as their the chemical factory of their body is concerned. Can you speak to that as far as what this does to the physiology of an individual?
Yeah, so the thing in our body that gives us the good sense of enjoyment and pleasure, and I won't throw out all the scientific terms and bore everybody, but just the endorphins that you get from having a good meal or going on vacation or whatever it may be, even intimate relationship with your spouse.
Right.
Whenever you've been using the higher level drugs, fentanyl and heroin and things like that, the folks we're dealing with, they're saying, hey, this is heaven on earth, and all I need is a quick injection, and I'm getting it. And we know the Bible says, I have not seen, nor ear has heard, nor things entered into the heart of the man, that, and obviously paraphrase, but for those that love God, he has heaven for them, but that's futuristic. These people are saying, hey, I'm getting heaven now, and obviously it's a cheap, shoddy, satanic substitute. But whenever that happens, it messes up the natural chemical reaction in the body. And so they may take a year in recovery on some of the worst cases, and they may do some permanent damage with that. And so we're asking these people to put down something that's destroying them, and we're instructing them in meekness, those that oppose themselves, out of 2 Timothy there. And Satan's done his work, and he's done it well in that regard.
Well, you're asking them to put it down because it's destroying them, but they don't see that it's destroying them. They see that it is destroying things around them and people around them, but they're getting their fix. Yes. And from a law enforcement perspective, one of the things that I have seen for years is that when we're encountering houses or people who are engaged and involved in opioid addictions, one of the things that I have found is that, generally speaking, there's pornography involved. There's a lot of pornography that's involved because of a lot of what they're doing is they're taking these drugs to heighten their sensual pleasures, only to find out that eventually what they're doing is they're killing the natural ability to have sensual pleasure naturally. And now the only thing that they care for is the needle or a line or a bowl. And so Satan has done a good job of tricking the public worldwide, the way he's doing this through illicit drugs. Go ahead, Mike.
Brother Zack, I want to ask a question. This is an assumption that I'm making just by what I'm seeing as far as folks that make it to the church. through the program, is it safe to say that people that are coming to Hope, not all, but in large scale, have already gotten to the end of themselves and they're fed up and they truly aren't still saying, they're not still babying their addiction. It may have such a hold on them that it's still impacting them, but they're to the place where they're like, I got to get help. I got to break some of these changes. Is that a safe assessment?
Yeah, I think there's a couple different reasons folks would come to the program. That's the one we're hoping for, and that's the one where you're going to see probably the biggest impact is when man's come to the end of himself. He sees, hey, I've not been able to figure out how to make life work. Maybe these religious people, maybe these people talking about Jesus, maybe the Bible, and maybe they have an influence, godly grandparents somewhere down the line of where they would consider Christ, and we hope that's the case. But it's a mixed bag because you'll see people coming in to try to make restitution with their spouse, with their boyfriend, girlfriend. You'll see some people trying to get some credit for law enforcement in the court system, things like that. And we don't necessarily really care why they're there, but we just want to get the gospel to them. Whatever they do with it is obviously on them. We're going to pray for them, and we're going to minister to them the best of our ability. But I think that's the best assessment.
Mm-hmm.
How would you, Brother Mike, respond to someone who says, because you're good at playing the devil's advocate here, so inside joke. How would you respond to someone who says, well, bless God, I tell you right now, you just get saved and you ain't going to have no problems? How would you respond to that to bring to bear why we do what we do with Hope?
I would say this, that I think the Bible is replete with the Lord himself meeting man where man was. Men of God. Take, for example, the Apostle Paul, Acts 17. He goes to Mars Hill, and he is surrounded at that place with idolatry.
Right.
And after kind of, scanning the surface level of things, he says, okay, now I want to talk to y'all about this unknown God, and he sets in with the gospel, okay? Well, all Hope is doing is it's taking and identifying a segment of your society, the culture you live in there, and a problem that's got them so strapped down that they're blind and deaf to the gospel. And it's saying this, let me use this as an avenue to meet you. I would say it would be kind of similar to the bus ministry of the 60s and 70s, where kids couldn't get to church. We found out a vehicle to get them there is the bus ministry. We bring them in, we minister to them, give them the gospel, see them saved. Well, Hope is now saying this, okay, look, there's an issue that's got folks bound down. I'm talking about bound down in your community. It's addiction. And so we're going to offer a program. It's nothing more than a door. It opens the door to introduce them to Christ. That's all it is. And but it is servicing a segment of the society. And this is different. The devil's done his work so well when it comes to addictive things that it literally has got them so bound down that just walking up and handing a guy maybe a tract in a parking lot isn't going to be as effective as saying, hey, look, I want to talk to you about where you're at. Right. Where you're at. And then you start to minister to his heart. He starts to maybe gain hope that, okay, this conversation may lead me somewhere. And that's what Hope is. It starts the conversation. It opens the door. And it shows a side of compassion. Hey, look, man, we want you at the church to know that we don't think you're an outcast. We don't think you're a throwaway. Hey, we care. And we care so much that we're willing to put a door in here at the church that you can walk through, that we let you know we want to help you.
And let us help you whip this.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I think it's like a lifeline of compassion. Right. That's what I kind of see it as.
And that hence the name of the program. It's Hope, helping others put off entanglement.
Yes.
Right.
So what is an entanglement? It's habitual sin.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And the church is there to help individuals figure out who God is and what he requires of them, and how to have an abundant life. And who Jesus Christ is, and so we want to help them to have a relationship with the Lord.
Yeah.
Now, this being the problem that it is, has it affected you personally, either directly or indirectly, with friends or family?
Yeah, I mean, I've had my own struggles coming up through college and high school, and I got family members. One family member in particular that I think he's OD'd 5 times in the past 24 months, and it hits home. There's a lot of folks in our community from affluent backgrounds. This is not just in the back alley of Metro America, New York City, and Chicago anymore. Right. This is in every small town, village, and hamlet in the United States of America. Mm-hmm. And it's bad. It's epic proportions.
I'll say this for any pastor: if you want to know how bad it is, just send an email or make a call to your local sheriff and say, "Do we have a drug problem in our county?" And then watch the response you get, and then ask that same law enforcement official, "Do we have enough programs to service it?"
Right.
And then get that. You ain't even got to believe us. Just get local, get close to the heart of your county. You'll find out real quickly how bad of a problem you got.
Right. Well, most of you know that I'm involved in law enforcement and work for the Chesterfield County Sheriff's Department in Chesterfield County, South Carolina. I head the chaplains program up there, and then I'll patrol and counsel and do administrative work there at the department. Well, one of the things that I do in patrol is I patrol with officers who are new or officers who have been involved in shootings or with officers who have difficulties and they want to just talk. And a lot they open up. Well, rarely ever do we have a shift at our department, and this is really speaks to every department, where we don't wind up in the back of an ambulance with someone who is receiving Narcan who is coming out of an OD situation. And oftentimes you lose those individuals and they die as a result of their situation. So what we're dealing with, it really isn't going anywhere. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to be conquered because the powers that be, and particularly the powers of hell, are doing their best to flood our communities to the place and point of imploding them through this particular addiction, opioid addiction. I recently was talking to a law enforcement personnel down in Georgia. They had done a raid. They were putting their stuff away, putting the evidence away, and one of the deputies that was on the raid died that night because of fentanyl poisoning. He had gotten fentanyl on his skin without knowing it, and died in the middle of the evening when no one was with him. And this happens a lot. I have an undertaker friend who says we keep our Narcan in the embalming room because we're having to deal with OD'd situations so frequently, and just what's coming out of and off of their bodies runs a risk of taking our lives just in ministering to them and their families. And so this problem is not simple and it is not small. This is a huge issue. Yesterday I was on the phone with the head of our narcotics department, and I work with them some, and we were talking about cases, and we were talking about needing of personnel, and we're short on personnel in a lot of our rural communities. Their sheriff's departments, their narcotics division, a lot of times doubles in the investigative division, which means they're doing more investigations of other crimes other than narcotics, which means they don't have any time to give to it. And even if they do have a dedicated narcotics department, it may not be but 2 or 3 guys.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you a disturbing statistic in light of that same comment. I noticed a disturbing trend at the beginning of COVID. You have a drug epidemic, you have an immorality issue, a sin issue. Now you have kids out of school, and you have parents and live-in boyfriends. The crimes against children have went through the roof.
They have. If
you look at the numbers and incoming inmates, and you can look at the crimes associated with it on most county websites, it is astounding. The ripple effect. So they can't, because they're even dealing with child crimes.
Right.
They don't have time to deal with the drugs now.
We are inundated.
Yeah, there's a ripple effect that all this causes. And so in addressing this one issue, there's no telling the multitude of sin that could be stopped,
Right.
So this is the end of the spear, to some other things.
Well, for instance, you were talking about a man that that died in a flop house somewhere close to where you were at, a man that was a veteran. It is not uncommon to go into a flop house where drugs of all sorts and kinds happen to be there, and do a raid or to do a knock and talk, and find that there's more Narcan in a drug house than there is in an ambulance. and they are literally dying at their own hands and asking their friends to bring them back. And that's how far we've gotten in this epidemic, and it's taking people to hell by the thousands. And therefore, to have a ministry like you have, I think, is extremely essential. And we want to, we want to highlight that best we can. Now, the government is pumping money.
Yes.
I mean, pumping money because they don't know what to do, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, so kind of give me an idea, and I've got numbers. I'll read you some numbers that's been handed out from the government.
Yes, sir.
But give us an idea of what's going on with that.
Yeah, so if you look at the secular society and they ever start turning to the church in the day and age which we live in, you know they don't have the answer.
Right.
Because the church is always the scapegoat for all bad things that happen. But the numbers that you have there are just a testament to that.
Right.
And the state of North Carolina, like I said, the main area where we're ministering at, Central North Carolina, is pumping money at this problem. They're throwing it at nonprofits. They're throwing it at churches. They want this to go away, or they need to say, hey, at least we're doing something. And I think there's even a situation in the news right now about an unproven ministry. And I don't know the details on it, where it was given $10 million, so to speak. And I don't know how that is going to come to light, but at the end of the day, when secular society starts turning to the church for answers, that's a pretty strong indication that we have a problem. So.
Right. Well, let me give you just a few numbers, if I may. This is coming in. This is all in the state of North Carolina. This is money that's being pumped from the government into nonprofit organizations and 501c3s that are involved in ministry to addicted peoples, primarily to drug-addicted peoples. Here is in Alamance County, Living Free Ministries, $21,400 they've received. The Anchor Holds Ministry in Nash County, $50,000. Fellowship Hall Ministry in Greensboro, $100,000. Ground 40 Ministries here in Union County, North Carolina, the county that we're filming this in or recording this in. They've received $112,000 in ministry assistance. Here's another in Wake County for $200,000. Here's one in Kinston. They've received $500,000. Samaritan Colony that I am familiar with. There are different branches of Samaritan Colony. They've received $500,000. Here is one called Outer Banks Dare Challenge, and they received $900,000. And the list goes on and on and on. Here's one in Robertson County, Hope Alive Ministry, received $10 million. Another received $11 million. Here's one in Burke County, receiving $3.25 million to help people. Now, I'm not saying these individuals and these organizations are not doing good work. That's not what we're trying to say. What we're trying to say is this is such a problem that even our state and even federal government is literally throwing money at the problem to try to cure it. And it's not going to be, I appreciate the money, but it's not going to be cured with money.
Yeah. And the danger in taking secular money from the state and taxpayer money, there's certain things that they say you can't say or preach or teach. Such
as, just give us an idea.
Yeah, I'll let the constitutionality of that kind of work its way out. I mean, the source that you cited, I'm actually familiar with it. I think it was put out by a local news organization in Charlotte, right?
Yes, WFAE, I think.
Yeah, if you get into specifying it's toward one specific religion, you basically broke protocol, right? Well, if you point them to having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, you're not supposed to take those monies, Yeah.
So you can't. What he's saying is you can't say if you're going to really get help, Jesus Christ is the only way that's going to happen. You can't say that.
Well, yeah, and there's a debate going on right now whether that's acceptable or not and what the legalities of it are. Some of these ministries are probably doing that, but they're doing it against their own detriment. When you take the money, there's different expectations. But what I'm saying is the church should take responsibility. There's a mandate from Scripture to handle this, even to the Gentiles. That's right. It's commanded. So,
Well, all we know is this is a huge, huge, huge issue, and something has got to be done. I appreciate what you, the Lighthouse Baptist Church, are doing. Brother Michael, give us an idea again on the conference. We do want to highlight that one more time.
February 25th and 26th, we'll be hosting a Hope for Addictions training conference at our church. Dr. Rick Carter, the founder, will be coming in on Friday the 25th. The actual first session will kick off at 1 o'clock. We'll have several sessions between 1 and 5. We will serve supper that night. And then on the next day, which is Saturday, we'll start that morning at 9. We'll go to lunch, serve lunch on the grounds, go back from 1 to 5. We are offering, we have limited lodging availability for those that don't need to travel in. We actually are asking pastors to either send folks or come and bring some volunteers with you. What this regional conference is all about is informing you about how the program is set up, how it can work. As Brother Zack said on a previous episode, it's very fluid. And so we're saying here's an opportunity. If you want to try to reach out to these folks that are entangled in your community, we have employed it, and it has worked very well for us.
Right.
February 25th and 26th at Lighthouse Baptist Church, Seagrove, North Carolina.
I have been familiar with, acquainted with, and have known Brother Carter for many, many, many years. We're not close personal friends, but I can speak to this. Having friends in Oklahoma, preaching in Oklahoma, in and around his area quite frequently, Dr. Carter has an exemplary testimony and name in the community of Oklahoma City, and has a true heart to train people for ministry and a true heart to try to reach people who are hurting and who are in need. And I think this would be time well spent. My intention, by the grace and help of the Lord, is to try to be in this conference as well, myself, and see if we can't employ this in some fashion to try to minister to some people that we're constantly in contact with. So we want to thank you for coming back by again today and being with us as we do this second and final episode on the Hope Addictions Conference at Lighthouse Baptist Church in Seagrove, North Carolina, which is coming up on February the 25th and the 26th. Thank you for joining us on this fine day, and you keep pressing on the upward way. See you next week.